I don't know. This is what they mean by sometimes things happen too soon, too fast, or early. And whatever that was, maybe it was Mark Miller wanting to bring Diwali earlier, or he trying to sort of prove a different point. But I think it had a lot to do with the fact that liberals had a problem in their caucus meeting. Trudeau was under a lot of pressure. They had to make some announcements. They had to sort of tell everybody that they are doing something, at least the fact that they have fallen out of favor. They had to sort of make some noise, make some announcements. And I guess it couldn't have happened earlier, as in the sense like what they were supposed to announce on the 1st of November with regards to the immigration targets, they decided to announce on the 24th of October, about a week earlier. A lot of it was already leaked by one of somebody from the liberals, or whoever was in the know. They leaked that document, that information, to National Post, and National Post had announced it the evening earlier, and everybody already knew what to expect, that the immigration targets are going to get slashed, are going to get cut by about 100,000 people. And next day, when Mark Miller did announce, then we realized that it was actually quite true, that the 100,000 people, the targets have been slashed by 100,000 people. But before we jump to the conclusion, before we start thinking all doom and gloom, honestly, because, when I thought 100,000 people to be reduced, I said, this is the end of immigration business. I have to start looking for something else. I was even thinking of registering with Uber, may as well go back to delivering food, because that's what it's going to come at. But when the targets were actually announced, and after, the first looks are always, you're very anxious. You don't really read through the lines. You don't read, or you don't try to understand exactly, because you're in a rush. You just want to get some information out of it. On the oversight, it looked, yes, these are pretty drastic changes. But when you sit down and go through it in detail, you realize it's not all that bad. And therefore, immigration business is not going anywhere. As far as I'm concerned, we are still in business. We'll still do what we are doing, because I love immigration. I mean, who wouldn't, right? Canadian immigration, it's like such a roller coaster. It's like a blockbuster movie. There is emotion, there is drama, there is action. Every single day, every single week, there is something to wake up to understand. Today, there will be this new emotion played out. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. Something of that sort keeps happening all the time here. But this time, it was a mixed emotion. I would say it was a mixed bag in a lot of ways. Of course, the targets had to be slashed. That was the call of the hour. The number of people in Canada has to be reduced. That's the call of the hour. The number of temporary residents have to be reduced. That's the call of the hour. And by that, the number of permanent residents also have to be reduced. That is also the call of the hour. And therefore, 100,000 number was slashed. The new target, so for this year, for 2024, 485,000 is the immigration target. That, in my opinion, has already been achieved. That number is all. Very soon you will see the data coming out by the time they start announcing the parliamentary reports that, hey, we have achieved our 485,000. For 2025, so whatever you are seeing now, whatever ITAs will be issued, whatever PNPs are happening, whatever is going on right now in immigration, that is all contributing to the immigration targets of 2025. Because if an ITA, for example, is issued in September, October, November, December, going by the average processing time, then it takes about 6 months to process those applications. Therefore, the people who will be admitted as permanent residents into Canada would be 2025. And hence, it goes against the target. It goes towards the targets of 2025. So, for 2025, the number that was earlier targeted, it was 500,000, 500,000 people, which was quite a promising target. Never ever has that happened before. So 500,000 was quite an ambitious target. And what they have done now is that they have reduced that number. The new number is 395,000, and 395,000 is now going to be the target for 2025. Let me just pull this up so we have it in front of us before we. Where did it go? This is what it is, right? So this is the permanent residence target for 2025. 395,000 is the number. It's a range, by the way. The immigration targets are never set in stone. It's never going to be one finite number. So 395 is the midpoint, and the range is between 367,000 to 436,000. So you see, this is what gives the government a flexibility. It's never a fixed number. It's not like the minute they will hit 395,000, they will close doors. Or it's not like when for 2024, the number is 485,000. It doesn't mean that the minute they hit 485,000, they will switch off their machinery, they will switch off their computers and say, okay, we will not process anything else until the next year. That's not how it works. It's a wide range, as you can see, 367,000 to 436. That's a good, about 60,000 people, actually more than that, right? Yes, about 60, 70,000 people. That's a very big range that they're giving you. And 395 sits somewhere, not exactly in middle, but that's where it sits. And that's what you will be looking at. It's a slash of 105,000 people from the earlier ambitious target of 500,000 people. But when you look at it in a bit more deeper, with a deeper sight or deeper insight, earlier what used to happen, and let me see earlier, this is the earlier targets, right? This is for 2024, 2026. This is what used to happen earlier. They would have the overall planned admissions target, 485,000. As I said, it's always a range between 430 to 532, a big range again. This time it was a range of nearly 100,000 people, but 485 is where it sits at. They said, first of all, let's talk about Frankophones first, right? Because for some reason, a lot of people do get very upset because then they see Francophone draws. There is no reason to get upset, first of all, because, hey, French is the second official language in Canada. So accept it, understand it, that the priority will always be there as far as the language is concerned, because they would like to promote more Francophones within the country, because this is the second official language of the country, right? So get that right. So instead of feeling all tight about it wherever the draws happen, why don't you take up the language and take advantage of that, right? Anyway, so let's look at the overall French-speaking permanent residents admissions outside Quebec. Earlier in the plan for 2024, it was 26,100, and for 2025, it was supposed to be 31,500. And in the new plan, also the target has been reduced a bit. It is now 29,325, which is the 8.5% of the overall target. Now, when you look at 29,325, it does not mean that 29,000 invitations will be issued to the Francophones. That's not what it means. First of all the numbers that you are seeing on your screen are all people, persons. So these numbers are not ITAs. That's where the biggest problem happens, is when people start confusing these numbers as ITAs. These are not ITAs. These are number of people. ITAs are much lesser. Why? Because one ITA could mean multiple people, spouses, children, all that happens. And then so many ITAs are issued, which get declined. People decline the ITAs, they get rejected, applications get refused. So the number that you are seeing on your screen is number of people. So 29,325. Now, if I click on number 4 here, it tells you the overall French-speaking permanent resident admissions outside Quebec indicated here represents the number of admissions required to meet the target. Good, 8.5%, and then increasing to 9.5% and then 10%. These targets are admissions outside Quebec and are therefore calculated based on how many admissions within the level plan would be necessary. Based on the overall ranges for admission, please understand that these are overall. They are not limited only to express entry. They are not limited only to the French category draws. So please, once you understand that, you will understand that these numbers do not represent the fact that these many number of ITAs will be issued for Francophone category. This is something which has to be understood and grasped before people start getting, oh, why are Francophone draws happening and why are the scores so low, and all those kind of comments that we see. So that's the first thing out of the way. French draws would continue. As you can see, that priority will remain. The priority is there. If you're still on the fence thinking, should I learn French? Should I, get onto the pool or not? Or what happens after 1 year after I have learned French? Will I still be eligible? Will I still be entitled to the draw? Well, this is the number here. This is in front of you. Francophone priority will continue. Therefore, if you have that on your horizon, please get on with it quickly. Second thing, in comparison to the 2024 targets, and this is the 2024 targets, was under the economic pathway, the biggest portion would be going towards the federal high skilled. Now, federal high skilled constituted of express entry largely. This is what if I were to click at number 2 here, this was the last year's thing. It says includes the federal skilled worker program, the federal skills trades program, and Canadian experience class. That's it. So because it includes these three programs, and all these three programs are managed under the express entry system, and therefore you would understand that by FHS or federal high skilled, they are referring to the express entry. Targets for 2025 as per the earlier plan was 117,500. This is what we were expecting would be the targets if we were to go with this original plan of 500,000, right? And then, of course, there were also the provincial nominee targets of 120,000. So we were going to go ahead with a calculation of the fact that out of this 120,000 provincial nominees, of course, there are some which are linked to express entry, and then there are many which are not linked to express entry. For example, in Ontario, in OINP, you have the human capital priority stream, which is linked to express entry, which means that once you get the nomination, you get 600 points, which are given to you in your express entry profile. Then there are other streams, for example, foreign worker employer job offer stream, international student stream, master's PhD stream. All of these are not linked to express entry, which means that once you get your nomination, you can apply for permanent residence directly without any express entry, because that would be the non-express entry portal route. And therefore, they are not connected, not linked to express entry. All the provinces have programs that are either linked to express entry or they are non-express entry. And therefore, this 120,000 people, again, people, not number of invitations, do not constitute the number of ITAs. They will again have a portion of it which would be express entry and portion of it not. Even if we were to take about half of it was express entry, give or take, because that would be the average, that would tell you about 60,000 people were supposed to come to Canada through the PNP express entry connected route. So if you add 117 with 60,000, that would give you a rough figure of 177,500. That was give or take what you had or what you could expect as you were moving forward if nothing had changed as far as Mark Miller plan had announced. But let's take a look at what actually happened. Now, in 2025, as per the new plan, instead of FHS, instead of that, what they have done is they have called it federal economic priorities, right? So that's the first thing that has been announced. Federal economic priorities, if I click on 5 over here, it takes us down. It says includes admissions for eligible candidates with specific skills, training, and language ability in order to be responsive to the labor market needs through categories established by the Minister of IRCC in express entry system. It's basically referring to the category-based draws. And therefore, it says the 2025 priority categories include, and this is where it gets very tricky, and I know the questions are going to start pouring in because that has already been a big concern and a bone of contention here. So it says healthcare occupations, trade occupations, and French language proficiency. Of course, as you already know by now, that the categories, current categories, have basically six specifications or six large categories. You have the Frankophone, so the French category, you have the STEM, you have the healthcare, you have the trades, you have the agri and food, and you have the transport category. However, as per this new announcement that was made a couple of days back, the 2025 priority categories include, but that doesn't mean that these will be the only categories. We will still have to wait. And that's all I'm saying, guys. Please wait. There could be more categories. There could be additions to it. There could be some revisions to it. This is not a final number. This is not a final category at this point of time. Of course, these are the ones that are considered as priority. I know STEM guys are freaking out. I know transport and agriculture guys are also freaking out. But guys, at this point of time, we just need to have a bit of patience. Let the actual category list come out, which will happen sometimes in January, and then you will have a better understanding of where they are headed with the other categories. For the time being, with today's announcement and today's video, for the sake of that, the 2025 categories are only restricted to healthcare, trades, and French for the purpose of this video only. The categories are established each year, informed by labor market. Projections are the projections are as per the input received by Again, going up back here, where did we go? Yeah, here. So the federal economic priorities, as I've just discussed with you, trades, healthcare, Francophones, French, would be 41,700 people. not ITAs. And I keep saying that again and again because people still confuse with this. So 41,700 people will be the categories for under the categories. The next one is in Canada focus. Now, in Canada focus has brought tears for some people, has raised a lot of concern for the others. But at the same point of time, let's take a look at this. It's 82,980. What does that mean for us? First of all, 82,980 plus 41,700 gives you a total number of 124,680. And why am I saying that? Because as you know, the categories at this point of time are largely within the express entries because that's the category based draws. And if I click on this in Canada focus, it says under number 6, primarily admissions from the Canadian experience class and other regional immigration pathways. We don't know what these regional immigration pathways are at this point of time, but may also come from federal skilled workers and federal skilled trades. Now, I don't understand why they keep talking about federal skilled trades because it seems like that program is pretty much shut. We haven't seen a draw for almost 3 years now, probably 4 years. I haven't seen a federal skilled trades draw. It's basically gone away. They are now conducting a trade specific draws in category, and I don't see that happening. So I do not know why they still talk about it, because I guess it's still a program. It's still a valid eligible program. Therefore, they keep talking about it. But the fact that they are still talking about the federal skilled workers, in my opinion, this basically means the general draws are not dead yet. So all those people who are freaking out that will general draws happen or not happen, all I can say, in my opinion, humble opinion, based on what I'm reading here, is that the general draws are not completely dead. Yes, the priority will be primarily admissions from the Canadian experience class. That is where the priority is going to be, and it makes sense. It's but obvious. They are trying to reduce the temporary residents in Canada. So therefore, the push is always going to be to convert as many temporary residents into permanent residents as possible, so that, I mean, of course, the temporary residents who are there already in Canada, whether as international students or foreign workers or their dependents, they're already in Canada, they're already working, they're already got housing, they're already living somewhere, they already have cars, they already have established their lives here. All that needs is transitioning them into permanent residents. So it doesn't really move the needle in any direction, and therefore the choice is obvious that the priority will continue for the Canadian experience class. And therefore, that's what you are seeing, that a very big portion has been allocated to the in Canada focus. Okay. 82,980. Now, I know there was this very big question that people had, that does in Canada focus mean that if you are outside Canada, but you are a Canadian experience class, that you will not be included? Now, I do not know why people keep confusing themselves with the location. Yes, the focus is for in Canada, no doubt about it. But then the highlight of identifying people with the in Canada focus is based on your eligibility in a program. Now, they are not looking to change the program, making it location specific. The program is based on Canadian experience class. Canadian experience class is very simple and it is defined very clearly. If you have 1 year of work experience in Canada, eligible work experience means it's paid, it's under a valid NOC. You have 1 year of work experience within a period of 3 years, then you are Canadian experience class. Simple point. There is no other buts and ifs and assumptions there. Where you physically are present, that does not matter. You could be in India, you could be in Pakistan, you could be in Dubai, you could be in South Africa, you could be in Nigeria. It doesn't matter. If you have completed 1 year of work experience in Canada and then decided to leave Canada, maybe your work permit expired, maybe you had other priorities, maybe you went back home to gain your foreign work experience because you wanted to get those extra points, that's absolutely fine. You are still Canadian experience class, and therefore in Canada focus will include those individuals as well, because as of right now, there is nothing here to suggest otherwise. So if you are a Canadian experience class but outside Canada, as of right now, based on what we are seeing, you are still part of the whole in Canada focus because you have gained that Canadian work experience. So coming back to this number, 82,980, 41,700, this brings the total to 124,980. 124,980 minus 117,500, 7,480. What am I talking about? You see, this was the last year's plans, right, which was issued for 2025. It said the federal high skilled is going to be 117,500. This year, now they've already announced two different, they've just basically categorized into two different groups: 41,700, 82,980, brings a total to 124, whatever, 124. Keep getting that number. I keep confusing that number. So it's 124,680, and 124,680 is giving you roughly 7,380 people extra. That is going to be extra people under the express entry. So as I was saying, it's not all that bad. You are still, so basically express entry is still the same. Previously it was 117,500. Now it's going to be 124,680 people, which is even better, right? It's 7,000 more. What else could people in express entry have asked for? I mean, there are going to be more invitations, more people can get invited, and more people can get through with the express entry. So that's the first thing that you need to be happy about, especially people who are Canadian experience class, especially people who are in the healthcare categories, people who are in the trades categories. These people can obviously have a better chance, better shot at it. Now, if let me sort of make this a bit smaller for the time being. Now, if you are within the healthcare category, if you are within the trade category, and let's assume for a minute that these are the only two occupational categories that would be included in of course, in addition to French, but then French, the numbers as we discussed, is overall. Means if you are a Canadian experience class and you're also Francophone, then you would be considered not as a separate category, but you would be part of that big number of 29,325. If you are a PNP, but you also had the Francophone attributes, then you would still be part of the 29,325. So it's not that 29,325 will be separate Francophone categories. But therefore, if you see 41,700, the number there, it basically means they can possibly invite more people under trade category and healthcare category. So basically, those two categories are bound to be at advantage. And mind you, to be eligible in a category draw, whether it's healthcare or trade, you don't need to have Canadian work experience. You could be outside Canada and you could still have 6 months of work experience, which is eligible, and you could still be in this particular draw, and you could still get invited with a very, very low score. When I'm saying very, very low score, I mean, in today's day and time, 433 looks like a very, very low score, right? When you are used to seeing express entry scores of 539, hey, what's a 433, right? Very low score. So therefore, keep your... for people who keep getting worried and stressed, okay, I've got nothing left, I do not know what to do, where should I go, what, well, these are the things that you need to keep a lookout on. When things are not going your way, then you figure out a way to mend your way so that you can join the same path in a manner that if you can find work within the healthcare, within the trades, then do it. Get that 6 months of work experience, and then you would be back into you would be eligible under the category draws. If you are a Canadian experience class, now with 82,000 people who are going to be invited, which is being specified in express entry within the category, within the Canadian experience class, and of course, few of them under federal skilled worker as well, you now know as a Canadian experience class, you have a very good opportunity to get through. Now, will the scores drop? We're going to talk about that in a bit, but will the scores drop or not? We'll get to that, but let's finish our draw sheet here to understand which way this is going to go. Federal business, now that's the next one. Federal business shows 2,000. I am not surprised at this one at all, because earlier this year, IRCC had already closed down the self-employed category. They had already closed down, or rather restricted the startup visa categories. They have been very badly manipulated, abused, and I think this was long time coming. A lot of things within the startup visa has been changed. More and more applications are being refused. Very stricter types of stringent interviews are being conducted for the startup visa applicant. So if you're one of them, then you really need to keep a very strict eye on what have you been doing so far and what have you been reporting to IRCC in terms of your business. But to see that this number has been reduced to 2,000, and in future it's going to be further reduced to 1,000 and 1,000. So that tells you that the priority has moved away from the startup visa and from the self-employed categories. The next one, federal economic pilots, caregivers, agri-food community, immigration pilots, economic mobility pathway pilots. Now that has a number of 10,920. Earlier, they had given this 14,750. So this is the second place. This number was reduced. Federal business was reduced from 6,000 to 2,000. 14,750 has been reduced to 10,920. Basically, a reduction of roughly 4,000 people. Is this a good move? Is this a bad move? Well, to be very honest, first of all, it's not a very big reduction. From 14,000, they've come back to 10,920. If you go back, it was in 2024, this year, it was only 10,875. It was going to be increased to 14,750. What they have done is that instead of increasing it to 14,750, they have kept it to almost the same. So from 10,875, which was the number for this year, all they have done is increase it only to 10,920. So again, there is no drop here. There is no, that number hasn't been slashed at all. All they have done is just increase it by a few, 45 people extra will become permanent resident through these pilots. I wouldn't say it's bad again. So all these Instagram reels and videos that you are saying, oh my God, this is so bad, this is so bad. Until now, I haven't seen anything which is bad. The bad, I will talk to you. Of course, there is some evil here as well, and I will talk to you a bit, and I will tell you why is that happening as well. But until now, have you seen anything bad? At least I don't see anything bad here. So this is all good. This is all good in the favor if you are an aspirant. I know there are a lot of you out there who are not in the favor of immigration. So yeah, can't say much for that. Moving on. Atlantic Immigration Program said 6,500, which was for 2024, 8,500 moving ahead for 2025. It is at 5,000. It has been reduced by 1,500 people. Again, not a very big reduction, but at the same time, it has been reduced to 5,000 people. Again, not too bad. You can all live with that one. But this is where the evil is. The evil is in the provincial nominee programs, the number being reduced to 55,000. This year, this number was 110,000. This is for 2024, guys. Okay. It was 110,000 provincial nominee program, and it was going to be increased to 120,000. Instead, they have reduced it to 55,000 from the current year's quota. It was actually going to go to 120. So this has been a drastic reduction. What can we talk about this one? Why did they do this? You see, now, when it comes to immigration, though the federal has their tentacles on it, I personally feel it's the provinces who are better positioned in order to choose the people that they should be willing to, give priority to, or who can gain entry within their provinces and come to Canada. And therefore, PNPs are always a good program. That way, the provinces are able to identify within their own, because, for example, if there is a requirement of STEM in Ontario, doesn't mean that Yukon needs STEM categories. It doesn't mean that Newfoundland and Labrador or Prince Edward Islands or Manitoba needs the STEM category candidates, right? Similarly, if Newfoundland and Labrador needs healthcare workers, but they aren't getting enough of them because most of the people who are coming through the federal draws, express entry and all, are preferring to stick around in Ontario or British Columbia. So the provinces are not getting the benefit of the federal draw. And therefore, the provincial nominee programs definitely makes more sense. I personally thought that this was evil. And that's what I said. This is really bad that their numbers have been reduced. Imagine, now this year was 110,000. Now with 110,000, what was happening is Ontario had the lion's share. Ontario had 20,000 quota for nomination. Alberta had roughly 9,700. Saskatchewan, Manitoba also had an equal number. British Columbia also had an equal number of 9,000-ish each. And then Yukon had about a 400 or 500 kind of a number, and then it reduced. The Atlantic provinces had roughly 3,000 to 4,000 individual quotas for each of those provinces. Not a lot for the Atlantic provinces. But now with this number going to 55,000, it's going to be very interesting to see how much has been allocated to each province, because this has really been reduced. Now, because of this reduction, a lot of you out there who were really, really pinning their hopes on PNP programs, whether it was the Alberta PNP, whether it was the Saskatchewan PNP, whether it was the Manitoba PNP, British Columbia PNP, or Ontario, especially people, for example, if you had chosen to study in Ontario a master's degree because you thought master's would be a good program for you and it would be easy pathway. If you chose to study in British Columbia a master's degree because you thought that PNP program is a very easy one to get through. If you chose to study in New Brunswick because you thought the New Brunswick Student Connection stream was so easy to get into, right? Now, all of you are going to get impacted with this 55,000 quota. People who are working in in-demand trades occupation because they thought Ontario's trade stream is going to be their gateway or entry into Canada, or the in-demand stream is going to be the entry into Canada, or you were completing a one-year program in Manitoba expecting that that is going to be your way in. All of you guys are going to get impacted because this number has been slashed into less than half what was projected for 2025. And this impact is going to be felt really bad. I do not know what the distribution for each province is at this point of time, and that we have to probably wait till the numbers are announced somewhere early in the year. But this is going to impact everybody who was spinning their hopes. For example, if you are thinking tech draw Ontario, well, with this numbers being reduced, that number is also going to get affected. If you are thinking healthcare draw Ontario, that number is going to get affected. If you are thinking any other kind of draw, Alberta for that matter, then these numbers are going to make a big impact. Now, why did they reduce when they could do a federal economic priorities of 41,700, when they could do an in Canada focus of 82,980, then why did they reduce the provinces by 50%, rather more than 50%? Well, I personally feel that this is Mark Miller's way of punishing the provinces. And why? Why would he punish the province? Well, what happened is just a few months back, there was a big controversy where there are a lot of refugee claimants who are living in Quebec, who are living in Ontario, and in British Columbia as well. And they wanted to spread these claimants to different provinces so that the load could be moved away from just Quebec and Ontario and BC, and so that they could spread out to different provinces as well. Now, there was this controversy whereby a lot of provinces said that we will not take these refugee claimants into our provinces because, of course, they gave reasons for housing crisis, housing shortage, job market, and the funds which were not being made available to them from the. So there was this controversy, a lot of back and forth, a lot of things came up on media, and of course, Mark Miller was made to look really, really bad. Now, I think because he has the cards in his hands, he has dealt them out in a very, very stingy manner as far as PNPs are concerned. And this is him getting back to the provinces and telling them or showing them who's the boss when it comes to these matters. Now, provinces have been quite vocal. If you see, most recently, Alberta Premier has come out and said, well, she doesn't agree with this, that it was the mess that was made by the feds in the way they handled immigration. But what they're doing to the provinces with terms of the PNPs is not very good, and that they are not happy with it at all. Same thing was said by the Ontario Premier, and I'm sure same sentiments will be echoed by the immigration ministers of the other provinces as well. We will see in days and time to come as to how the impact of this one is going to be felt. But in my opinion, this was the most evil of them all, of all the other slashes. And this is where the biggest impact was made. This number has been reduced by nearly, it was supposed to be 120. So as you can see, this number has really gone down by about, 65,000. So that's 65,000 people right there. So when they announced 105,000 people announced have been slashed, then this is 65,000 gone from here right away. Moving on, we also had some cuts under the family class. Spouses, partners, and children have gone down to 70,000. In the last year, this was supposed to have been 84,000. It was 82,000 for this year. It was supposed to have gone to 84,000, and this has been reduced to 70. So that's a reduction of 12,000 from this year and 14,000 if you were going to look at the targets for 2025 as earlier made. Not only that, the parents and grandparents have also been reduced to 24,500. It was earlier supposed to be, this year was already 32,000. It was going to be increased to 34. So that numbers have also been reduced from roughly 118,000. This number has gone down to almost 94,500. So you are seeing another 15,000 people being no, more than 50, almost 118, 18, and about 20,000 people, more than 20,000 people reduced. And this for me was a bit of a, I wouldn't say a shock, but I was surprised, because I thought this is the vote bank, right? Uh, who can sponsor their spouses and partners and children, and who can sponsor their parents and grandparents? Only permanent residents and citizens in Canada. Now, if you're going to take away, or if you're going to reduce this number from their eligibility of getting their families with them, then they are going to get even more upset. Now, let me just clarify. Reduction of this number does not mean that you cannot sponsor your parents, or you cannot sponsor your spouses. What it basically means that for parents and grandparents, for this year, whenever they will announce the lottery, the numbers will be reduced for the number of invitations. Of course, less chances for people who get through with that one. And for spouses and partners, it basically means, or it will mean as we move into the future, that there might be more delays, because once they have exhausted the 70,000 people quota, then either they will stop processing or they will slow down the processing as they move into the next year's quota of 2026, which is then further reduced to 66,500. And then again, going into 2027, it has been reduced even further to 61,000 people. So as you are seeing that the number of people for under the parents, grandparents, spouses, children class has been reduced and will continue to be reduced. It basically means that if you are looking to sponsor your spouse under the family class, then don't wait. Get that application in at the earliest, because now you can start experiencing delays in the processing, or you will see that your application can take much longer than what it was earlier getting processed. And once you come closer to the quotas or the targets being achieved, then you can experience even longer delays. So if you are at the beginning of the year, try to get in your application at the earliest, to see that you do not get impacted by these delays. Further, then you have refugees and protected person. Total number now is for 58,350. As per the last target, last year's announcement, it was supposed to be 72,750. So there is a reduction there as well, which is okay, which is acceptable, because this was creating a lot of issue. Also, because a lot of people who are now in Canada as temporary residents have been resorting to making refugee claims, asylum claims, when actually they don't have any reason to make that claim. Mark Miller has already identified that more and more and more international students and temporary foreign workers who are in Canada, who have got an open work permit, they are filing claims as refugees, when actually there is no reason, because they have their SOPs, they have their backgrounds, they have their applications in there. They don't really have any reasons to claim. So you're also seeing that number being reduced from an earlier 72,750 to 58,350. So you're seeing a roughly drop of about 14,000 people there. And then total humanitarian and compassionate, which is the last category, the number is now 10,000, again reduced from a number of 13,750, which was for this year, and was going to be 8,000, but that number has gone from 8,000 up to 10,000, and that is where it all stops. 10,000, that's the last category. So overall, if you look at the overall 2025 targets, that yes, there has been a slash of 105,000, but for me it looks more like a political move, as in they're trying to say we have reduced the numbers. But if you actually going to see where the numbers are being reduced, it's basically the PNPs. That the PNPs are being made to suffer for the dissent that they showed towards Mark Miller, and saying that we will not take the refugees that you're trying to resettle in our province. At least that's the way I am looking at it. But that is where the biggest chunk of people are going to get impacted and affected. So if you are a person who are looking to make an application through PNP, well, then this is where the biggest problem is going to come in terms of whether you would be eligible, not be eligible. So try to pivot, try to find different ways, try to identify other options that you might have sooner than later. Don't wait. Don't think you will do it later. Don't think you will look at it after you have completed your study. So if you're already studying and you have 6 more months to go, you should be at it pronto right now, figuring out a different way of wading through this, so that when the time comes and when you have completed your education, you are able to then make those changes, or you're able to implement whatever your pathways or your plans are. And this, my friends, is the good and the evil of the immigration quotas of 2025, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the uh, scores, right? Because the scores are very, very important, because I know a lot of you are asking what the scores are going to be. I actually didn't open that streams. Just give me one moment. I will open that page so we have that as well. Okay, so this is the express entry pool after, oh, sorry, we didn't have, why is it blank? Okay, now we have it. The last draw was the trades category draw. 1800 was the score, and sorry, 433 was the score. 1800 people invited. Now look at the CRS score distribution as of the 22nd of October. Now 501 to 600, it shows here 13,430. Now you would say, and you would imagine, that if they have 82,000 people to invite, shouldn't they be able to clear this so quickly so that you can get to the 490s, 480s, and that is how they should be able to clear out all the 500s at the earliest. I'm hoping they do. But earlier this year, when I was so hopeful that I would see the 500s getting cleared out, and suddenly I have become very conservative about this whole number and very not as optimistic, is because IRCC has been so inconsistent. They haven't been consistent with the draws, because had they been consistent with the draws, I'm absolutely certain you would have seen 500s by now. You would have probably even seen the high 490s by now. But they didn't stay consistent. They kept on giving those big, large gaps. And towards the last 2 or 3 draws that they have conducted for CEC 2 draws, they invited only 500 people or 400 people. Again, which has pushed the scores way up, went up to 539. And now you have 500 and between with a score of 501 to 600, you have 13,430. So the next question that people have been asking is that, are these immigration targets already in effect? Well, as I was explaining earlier, as far as express entry is concerned, whoever they're inviting now will go towards the targets of 2025. And therefore, whatever invitations are being issued now are probably to comply with the quotas of 2025. However, the quotas that they decide upon, they usually decide upon for the year, and then the immigration targets are for the following year. So I know that's a bit confusing, and the reason why it gets confusing is because of that range that they work with. And the range is again flexible. It's quite a large, big range. And at this point of time, the number of invitations that they will issue, in my opinion, I think because we're coming to the end of the year, that number may be more balanced out. You might see more category draws, because for this year, earlier, if you saw earlier's distribution, there never was a separate category or a separate number for Canadian Experience class. It's only in 2025 they have decided to make a separate category for Canadian Experience class, or a separate group of or assigned a number for Canadian Experience class, or what they are referring to as in Canada focus. So based on that, the expectation would be that they would hold draws, which would be like, for example, CEC, PNP, and of course category draws. And you would see less of category draws and more hopefully, fingers crossed, more consistent levels of Canadian Experience class draws. That being said, and now that the number has been identified, the number has been defined, about 82,000 people, almost 83,000 people within the Canadian Experience class, and of course some general as well. In my opinion, I would hope to see at least 490s going through within the first quarter of next year. At least that's what the number suggests. And that will be possible only and only if IRCC is consistent with their draws, and they don't play hanky-panky with the draws. Like, they don't try to give us a heart attack by conducting only a 500 kind of a draw and a 300, 400 kind of a draw. So as long as they keep it consistent by inviting 3,000, 4,000 kind of people per draw, and the draws are consistent, then you can definitely see 490s happening. Now, anything other than 490s, I cannot look at right now or see, because I don't know how IRCC is going to play out. So I would definitely want to tell you that yes, 480s is possible. Yes, even 470s is possible. But I don't know, because only IRCC knows what they are planning with in terms of the draws. But the very fact that they have a separate category of in Canada focus. That by itself gives me a lot of hope, a lot of faith in the fact that there is a very, very good possibility of seeing 490s hopefully by the first quarter. If not, then we'll have to wait and see, or probably change our speculation or change our prediction going by the way IRCC continues to conduct the draw. Is it in IRCC's hand to have to conduct a large draw? Of course it is, right? You can't forget the 27,000 kind of invitations that they've invited in the past in 2021, right? Can they do it again? Yes. Is there a possibility of that happening? No, that doesn't seem likely. But definitely want to see that 500s being cleared out. I think those 500s are under extreme pressure. Their work permits must be expiring or would have already expired. Most of them would be on a fake extension. Most of them would be on implied status, on visitor record, or probably grasping on that last straws, trying to figure out a way. So definitely want to see those 500s being cleared out. And then we can start talking about 490s once we get to that number. So fingers crossed. Let's see how these get shipped out. Another thing is about will Ontario conduct a tech draw? Now, Ontario had been conducting a tech draw even before IRCC had category-based draws. Even before that, Ontario was conducting tech draws. So, but what Ontario has now pivoted to, because all this while they were conducting only tech and healthcare, that this time they also conducted a general. It wasn't a general draw; it was still an other priority occupation draw, where they invited finance and admin and marketing and all those positions as well, and of course some engineering knock codes as well. Can they do it again? Yes, absolutely. Whenever they conduct these draws, it obviously builds more hope for you to sort of something of that sort to happen. And I would certainly be keeping my fingers crossed and hoping and praying that they conduct another of those other priority occupation draws as well. Can they conduct a STEM kind of a draw? Sorry, a tech kind of a draw? Yes, it's a possibility. As I said, even in the past, even when IRCC was not conducting category draws, they did conduct a draw for tech only. So it's a possibility. But I think the labor market priorities has changed a lot. There is a lot of difference in what is considered as priority occupation now as to what was being considered earlier. That has changed a lot. The market has softened. The unemployment rates are slightly on the higher side, and it's obviously troubling everybody across. And therefore, and there is a lot of pressure on the tech market, STEM market, no, not STEM, tech market, IT market in Canada, job market in IT. So therefore, there is a possibility that they might hold it back. But I still do hope to see a STEM or a tech draw before, at least with Ontario. Now, we're coming to the end of the year. IRCC conducted a draw for trades. Can there be a draw for transport? Can there be at least one goodbye draw for STEM? Possibility is there, because I said we are still working with the targets or the invitations. As you had seen the ATIP notes, they list out all the draws for the year, even though they're playing for the targets which get overlapped for the next year. But the ITAs or the number of invitations that they issue, that targets are for each year, so from 1st of January to 31st of December, though they are working on the immigration targets which are overlapping from one year to another year. So I do anticipate that there could be a category draw before the end of the year for all the remaining categories, whether it is transport, agriculture, and a STEM. Probably a goodbye draw kind of a thing before they change the categories for next year. Because as you read on that note, it said the categories for 2025. We are not yet in 2025. We are still in the year of 2024. So as long as we are in the year of 2024, the categories for 2024 are still in effect. And therefore, and that is the only reason why I am hopeful that there could be one last hurrah for these categories and while we move into the next one. So again, fingers crossed. I know it's a lot of speculation, but then I don't really have any inside information. I can only tell you from what I am reading and what I am listening to with the ears on the ground, and different people, different experts, different people who are in the know, who basically discuss and talk about these things, just picking up snippets from them and combining it and then sharing it as my opinion. It's primarily speculation, but then that's what gives us hope, right? That's basically what I have for you in terms of the good and the bad, or the evil of the immigration quotas and targets. let's get to our weekly roundup now. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay with us on TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, of course, everywhere. And if you are still here, hit on that like button so we can get this video out to more people. PNP draws, they did happen. 22nd of October, BC conducted a draw, issued 125 invitations. These were category-based draws under the skilled worker and international graduate streams. I'm sure this draw is already old, so most of you who already received the invitations are already aware of it. Childcare got a score of 83, construction 89, healthcare 99, tech had a high score of 117, and the veterinary had a score of 80. Manitoba also conducted a draw on the October of 24th. It was the 231st draw, and they issued 253 letters of advice to apply. The score, what was the BC PNP accounted? No. So the base PNP accounted for 210 of these invitations. And yeah, that's basically Manitoba. Skilled worker in Manitoba, 50 letters, minimum score of 872, very high. International education, now those people don't really need any score. They just need to apply if they're eligible. And then the skilled worker overseas also had a high score of 703. Prince Edward Island also conducted their draws. They issued 48 invitations. And this was for the business invitations for 97 points. And then they also conducted their draws for other categories there as well. In PEI, Quebec conducted their draw on September 19th, which was almost a month plus back, issued 1650 invitations. Of course, they announced their details of the draw so late. That's why we've got it so late here on the weekly roundup today. Express entry, let's talk about it very quickly. 27th of October, that was the last draw that has been conducted. 1,800 invitations invited, 1,800 people invited, score of 433. This was the category draw for the trade occupations, which basically means if Ontario has to now conduct a draw for trades, then it would be at 432 and below, depending on how many invitations they issue. Then you have CEC. It was conducted, of course. This was another heartache draw of only 400 invitations. Really shocking, this one. Score of 539. But then basically we are now getting to understand that this might have something to do with the new targets that had to be announced. And therefore, that is where the problems came from. I hope that now that we are aware that there is a separate in Canada focus group with 82,000 people quotas, this will go up back to the regular draw size. Fingers crossed for that one. And then there was a PNP draw on the 21st of October. They invited 648 people with a score of 791. In other news, we have, okay, this has another thing which has happened with the LMIA applications. Effective the November of 8th, people who are making an LMIA application, not people, sorry, companies who are making an LMIA application for the high wage applicants, for the high wage LMIA applications, there is a very, very big change. So now what is going to, so earlier what used to happen, if you're going to make an LMIA application, you always have to offer a salary which is meeting the median wage of that job in that geographic location. It must meet. So it has to be median wage or more. Only then can you make an application for an LMIA. But what they have done is for the high wage, they have increased that median wage by 20%. So not only do you have to meet median wage, that median wage, it has to be median wage plus 20%, which is a very big number, to be very honest. And with this happening, this basically means that a lot of people are going to get impacted. A lot of employers will be dissuaded from making these applications because the 20% is a big number, to be very honest. So not only are you offering median wage plus 20%, this basically means that when they are going to be offering these kind of salaries, more permanent residents and Canadians are going to be encouraged to be working in these positions. And therefore, an employer would have a difficult time trying to prove that they were unable to find a Canadian permanent resident or a Canadian citizen to do this job. And hence, another another route that ESDC has taken to reduce the number of people who are applying for LMIAs and not offering those jobs to Canadians. I know what are you guys talking about, but let's just stick to the fact of what the changes are at this point of time. We already know that Canada is looking to cut the immigration by 20%, actually it's 21%, and that is what we have been discussing for the last 1 hour. 105,000 people slashed from the targets for the year 2025 and onwards. Connect with us. Social media platforms, we are there everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. If you're here and you haven't subscribed to the channel, I don't know why you won't subscribe to this channel. Hit that subscribe button. So, because I do these live streams and sometimes there isn't enough notice. At least if you have subscribed to the channel and you have also clicked on that bell icon, you would at least get notified whenever we conduct these live streams. Okay, did they remove STEM from PNP for 2025 and further? Well, we just discussed this in detail. Probably watch this video from the beginning. We discussed this quite in detail earlier already. Is the median wage requirement needed to be satisfied for PR stream LMIA? Yes, the median wage requirement has to be satisfied for all LMIA applications, whether it is a low wage LMIA, high wage LMIA, or a PR supporting LMIA. It has to be it has to be complied with. That is the basis of the LMIA application. They include FSW in Canada Focus. The only way for FSW to be in that is if they use location as a factor. Otherwise, it is meaningless. Well, you have a point there, and I agree with you there, because you see there are a lot of FSW candidates who are in Canada and who are probably, for example, you can get an ICT work permit. You could get an ICT work permit for a senior position. You could be an executive director. You could be a man. You could be a CEO. You could be self-employed. You could have done a C10 work permit for yourself. And while you have worked in Canada for 1 year, you are now eligible to get the points for your job offer, 200 points in most cases, but you can't get work experience points because you are self-employed. Now, in this case, what happens is that you are not a Canadian experience class, but you are in Canada, you are working in Canada, and therefore there is that in Canada focus. So you might see that the FSWs are being included if they are with the arranged employment, and that is a possibility. But location-wise, identifying people, now that could create a lot of problem, because people who have left Canada and they are Canadian experience class, it's going to be very difficult for them to say if you're inside Canada or outside Canada. But if something like that happens, it would be very interesting to see if that's how they are going to go about doing this. Good one to bring up. Can you please tell us in detail about changes in startup visa? Well, the startup visa changes happened quite a long back. It's nothing new. We've already made a video about it. You can obviously go back into the channel and see our video about the startup visa changes. Primarily, the changes are with regards to how many applications can be submitted under each designated organization. So basically, each of them has been restricted by 10. That is the biggest change that came with the startup visa. Other changes have also got to do with how do they maintain their businesses and what kind of documentation they provide. And startup visa applicants are now also eligible for an open work permit. Okay, let's take a look at all these super chats that have collected. Gurjeet says, I have a CRS score of 444 under transport category. Any chances of getting an ITA, or should I choose to move to a different province for PNP? Work permit expiring in 14 months. Now, very difficult to talk about individual prospects. So if you were going to ask me here on live stream, what are my chances? Very difficult to sort of sit and do that in a very short time that we have. As far as transport category draws are concerned, in my opinion, there might be a last hurrah. Opinion, just an opinion. It's just speculation, but I don't know. Next year's categories, at least from what they have announced so far, do not include transport. So I do not know if that will be included or not. As far as Ontario is concerned, Ontario PNP has never included a transport category as part of their invitations. So if that happens, then it would be nice to see. Other than that, if you're in Ontario, probably speak to your employer and see if they can support you for the employer job offer stream or the international student stream if you're eligible, and that could be an option. Real sister applied visitor visa from my PR GCK account. Will it have impact on my PR in case if visitor visa gets refused? Bit worried. No, absolutely not. even if the application was made from your account, I hope you added a designated representative or designated representative form to that. If not, then you can always raise a web form and add that. But if the visit visa is refused, absolutely nothing to do with your PR application. So while it was your account, but it's two different applications for two different people. So it won't impact, don't worry. Foreign work experience, com closed. I do not know what you mean by com closed. Can't reach AR. Can a colleague write my reference letter and salary certificate? Cash salary, does it need notarization by whom? Uh, no, your colleague cannot write you a letter and a salary certificate. Salary certificate has to be written by the person who gave you the salary to establish the fact that, yes, they did pay you a salary. And a colleague can also not write you a reference letter because it's not a colleague who you were reporting to. So the letter has to be written by your employer or your manager or your supervisor. And if your company is closed, it can become very difficult for IRCC to validate your work experience. So while you can still provide those details, try to get it from your manager or supervisor, because in this case, that is the only thing that you can do. The documents do not need notarization if they are on an employer's letterhead. Friend worked for a week after getting the completion letter, but delayed PGWP application, effects on PR, what can he do? Well, can't do anything at all at this point of time. You shouldn't have worked. For people who don't know, that you cannot work after you get a completion letter. You can only work until you are studying. And after your studies have completed, you can continue working until you get your completion letter or your final transcripts. The day you get your final transcripts or your completion letter, you can no longer work. If you want to continue working, you must apply for postgraduate work permit. If you have worked, to be very honest, there is nothing much you can do about it now. You can add a letter of explanation, apologize, or simply, you shouldn't have worked. What else can you do about this? There is no solution to something of this sort. Simply just write a letter of explanation and apologize. Fake work permit extension got rejected, of course, yes. It stays status expire on the 17th of October. My flight on November 9th to India, do I have to apply for restoration or visitor before leaving? No, you don't have to, because you have 90 days to apply for restoration, but you are leaving earlier than that on the 9th of November. That's nothing to be done. You can absolutely leave Canada, and once you will leave Canada, then you will no longer be out of status, or the status will not have any impact on you. So you're absolutely fine. You can leave Canada without having to apply for anything at all. I applied open work permit extension in August with LMIA explanation submitted on July. I got my LMIA approved on Friday. Do I have to submit a new closed work permit application, or can I update my web form in initial extension? Okay, Jubin. So if you made an application for work permit, and if you already explained in that work permit application that you are in the process of applying for an LMIA, or that your LMIA is already in progress, and I'm hoping that you provided your LMIA application number as well in the work permit, then all you can do is raise a web form, provide a copy of your LMIA, and ask IRCC to add your LMIA to your work permit. And hopefully they would do that and then approve your work permit application. That is the only thing you can do. And if you had not done your work permit application in this manner, by showing it to be a closed work permit, by mentioning your LMIA number, providing the documentation and the proof of your LMIA, then you can basically also make another application at this point of time, so that if they refuse your first one, at least you can still continue being in Canada. You can't work, you can be in Canada, and then they will consider your second application. But do raise a web form and provide a copy of the LMIA for your first application. Am I eligible for STEM stream with 6 months of experience on a PGWP and 1 year of equivalent STEM experience on a study permit with no additional work experience? No. Any period of work experience while you are studying in Canada, or if you are in a co-op or your internship in Canada as part of your studies, then that work experience is not eligible in express entry for STEM or for any other category for that matter. My friend is out of status. Is it safe for him to do investment and grow wealth in stock market using Wealth Simple, or earn using sports betting app? Wow, earn. I can't give any financial advice, of course, so I can't tell you what to do or not to do. But if you are transacting in any of these apps, even if you're out of status, that doesn't make any difference. Yeah, absolutely no connection there, absolutely nothing to be worried about. But of course, do your due diligence. That's all I can say. I'm not a financial expert and I can't give you any financial advice here. Therefore, as far as the app is concerned, yes, you can transact in any app you want. There's no problem with that. Can we claim CEC points for my wife's Canadian work experience while she works as a contractor, pays herself through her own incorporation, has valid pay slips, T4s, incorporation, and residence addresses are the same? Well, if you are paying yourself through your own incorporation, even then you are a self-employed individual. If your name is on the Air Corporation, then you are a self-employed individual. Paying yourself a salary does not make you an employee. You are still a contractor. And this self-employed work experience is not considered as eligible for the Canadian experience class or any, for that matter, for any stream in Canada. You can certainly give it a shot. IRCC has been extremely inconsistent in the most recent times. I've seen the strangest of decisions coming from them. Yeah, take a chance if you want, but if you are asking me on the technicality of it, no, it's not eligible. Can I claim 50 points right after my LMIA gets approved, or should I work for 1 year with the same employer? If you have an LMIA approved and your name is on it, right away you can claim 50 points for it. There is no requirement for you to work for a year on the LMIA to claim those 50 points. Closed work permit expiring in January, LMIA extension applied for. Can we continue to claim 50 points till LMIA approved implied status? No. You can only claim 50 points for LMIA after your work permit has been approved, or once you have the LMIA extension, or once you have the LMIA approved. Priyank says, currently on implied visitor record, have 506 points after securing LMIA from my employer, but my open work permit expired 3 months ago. Do I go back to India and hope for ITA, or try to review my work permit while remaining in Canada? Well, if you have an LMIA, then you can apply for a work permit by flag polling. Otherwise, if you wish to go back to India, by all means do, and wait for your draw to happen from there. If you have any other option to improve your scores, then you could also consider doing that. But if you wish to stay in Canada and work, then you already have an LMIA, then you can absolutely apply for a closed work permit by flag polling. When is the best time to apply for visitor record? Within 90 days of postgraduate work permit expiry, or within 90 days of fake work permit extension refusal? If I get LMIA while on visitor record, can I apply work permit by flag polling? Well, the whole point of applying for fake extension is to get those extra few months of time so that you can continue working. If you will apply for a visitor record, then obviously you cannot work. And if you cannot work, then there is nothing much you can do. Also, if you're going to secure an LMIA and you are on a fake extension implied status, then also you are eligible to apply for another work permit online. That is not a problem. But if you change your status to a visitor, then you cannot apply for a work permit online, and you would be out of status, so you cannot even flag poll, which basically means you will have to do an application from outside Canada, which makes it that much more complex. So yeah, it's your call, but if you're going to get an LMIA, you may as well apply for a closed work permit with that as well. If in PR application, two similar questions, have you been refused a permit and have you been refused a visa? Should I answer yes to both if I have a spousal open work permit refusal in the past? Well, yes, you can say yes to both. It always keeps you clear. I do that. I usually answer yes to both. I sometimes do not want to mess around with IRCC's interpretation sometimes of what you should say yes to and what you shouldn't say yes to. So I usually say yes to both, and I just copy paste the same explanation saying this application was refused on this and this month or date, and this is the application number, and very briefly provide what is the reason for that refusal. Okay, where did Raghuveer go? Raghuveer says, me and my wife staying together in Canada. I received ITA with non-accompanying spouse. Can I submit the PR application? If yes, what details need to mention in explanation letter? If not, any suggestion? Well, if you are submitting your application with spouse as non-accompanying, then you will need to provide a very brief reason as to why is your spouse not accompanying you? And you will have to provide that reason as to why is your spouse not accompanying you. Now that reason is yours, it's unique, it's yours for you to explain. I can't give you a suggestion as to why your spouse is not accompanying you. That's not for me to tell you. uh, and if you are going to give any reason, please be ready to provide any supporting evidence in case IRCC might want to ask you for it. But just to sort of explain, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can complete your application with spouse not accompanying. That's absolutely fine. There is no problem. But just be able to give a very brief explanation. You don't have to write a letter of explanation. Just in the text field itself, you can briefly enter as to why is your spouse not accompanying you. Applied PR as legally separated and submitted Portal 2. Now divorce is finalized, awaiting the decree. Should I inform IRCC right now or wait for the decree? If you don't have the decree, then, well, you are not yet divorced. That's the whole issue. So, and since your application is already at Portal 2, it won't make any difference even if you were to inform them, because it doesn't change anything. You are already legally separated. You already provided all the documents. You are already at the final stages. From here on, it won't really matter. Plus, until you have the final decree, you can't really do anything about it. So so basically at this point of time, there is no action required. CEC GTS 501, wife spouse open work permit in Canada. Can I show her non-accompanying, and once I get a PR, then sponsor her? Can I give reason as high CRS score? I would never suggest. First of all, yes, you can do it. No problem with that. Lots of people are doing it. Even a couple of questions earlier, somebody was asking the same question, and yes, you can do it. I don't ever recommend giving reasons as high CRS score. That's primarily gaming the system, and that's not. At least I don't recommend it. And I don't know of anybody who has said this and has been fine. If you find people who have said this, I'm sure you can look on forums. There will be plenty of people who would put their experiences in there to say that if they did say that or not. I wouldn't say that. And I can't give you a reason because it is obviously yours to sort of explain. After AOR, I found there was a spelling typing mistakes in my previous employment letter in my surname. I have attached T4 ROE and which have no mistakes. Should I raise a web form for new employment letter? Well, it all depends what kind of a spelling mistake. If it was just an alphabet here and there, it's not really a problem. But if it is a much more drastic spelling mistake which completely changes the name by itself, then maybe you need to provide a new document. Currently on closed work permit, got new LMIA approved under tier 1, waiting for the new work permit result. Can I claim 50 points now or after work permit approves? If you have an LMIA with your name on it, then you can claim 50 points for it. Work permit has got nothing to do with your 50 points in this case. I have 2 years, 11 months of international experience and 1 year in Canada. If I work 2 more months, will my international experience reach 3 years and 1 month? I have 2 years, 11 months of international experience and 1 year in Canada. If I work 2 more months, will my international experience reach 3 years? Yes. The answer to your question is yes. If you complete 2 more months, then your work experience will be 3 years plus. Need to update postgraduate work permit application address change. No, there is no obligation to update address changes for your postgraduate work permit application. If you want to, you can always drop a web form. You can always create a web form and update that, but there is no such requirement. PR submitted for primary only 30th of April. Applied bridge open work permit for both. IRCC P1 mail on October. Fake extension approved till 26. Fake extension approved until 26. You have really complicated this. Bridge open work permit withdrawn. Will spouse approved permit cancel with ECOPR? Well, answer is yes. Your spouse's work, you've already withdrawn the bridge open work permit. So there is no basis for your spouse to get anything for that matter. And the fact is that if the bridge open work permit has not been approved, then there is no situation where your spouse will get a work permit. You are saying fake extension approved, so I'm a bit skeptical on that one. But at the end of the day, if your spouse has status, then she's fine. If she doesn't have status, then by your withdrawing your bridge open work permit, your spouse now would be out of status. So, but a very complex situation, the way you explained, I really don't understand where this whole thing stands. But just make sure that your spouse, you got P1 email, which is good, but just make sure that your spouse is in status. Can you LMIA exempt work permit? Who can apply and how? Can you explain LMIA exempt? Well, LMIA exempt work permit is when you don't need an LMIA. There are only certain categories where you don't need an LMIA. It could be based on your employer, the kind of exemption the employer can get. It could be a C50 where there is a reciprocal or the intra-company transfer or a significant Canadian interest benefits. Who can apply? Well, if you have an employer who wishes to give you the job offer and is willing to pay the compliance fee online on the IRCC portal, and then tells you which stream you might be eligible in, then you can apply for the LMIA exempt work permit. In most cases, most people are not eligible for an LMIA exempt work permit in most cases, unless the employer can do a C50 reciprocal LMIA exemption or an ICT work permit, or if you are a religious worker or a charitable worker in one of those organizations, or you are like a sports coach kind of a job, or if you are from a country which is under the NAFTA agreement, then those are the options for the LMIA exempt work permit. I have a job letter signed by my manager. I work at Avis Budget. Does it need to be from HR or manager works? No, manager's job letter also works. There is no problem. I received an ITA under Ontario Tech, but recently moved to Alberta for work. Should I decline the ITA or proceed? No, absolutely proceed. Don't decline your ITA, my friend. Please don't decline your ITA. Stating the intent to return. Yes, please state your intention. Provide the letter of intent that you want to live in Ontario, but please don't decline your ITA. Alberta might not give you a very good option. So please continue with your application. There is no problem even if you live in Alberta. Just make sure that you provide information or your intention, strong intention to live and work in Ontario. Can we show the valid work experience for a company that is not registered? Well, it depends what kind of a company and which country. In some cases, you might be able to, and in some cases not. For example, if you're showing a company which is in Canada, which is not registered, if it is not registered, then it is going to be very difficult to prove if it's a valid work experience. In the case like you can't do your T4s, you can't do your notice of assessment, you can't do your record of employment, and therefore that work experience may not be considered as eligible. I have an open work permit. I'm currently looking for a job while working as an Uber driver, and I have a business number to work as an Uber driver. Can I apply for my wife, spouse work permit as an Uber driver? Difficult, but possible. I would recommend doing a flagpole, so at least you have a chance of explaining to the officer at the border and getting a work permit. And make sure you carry your financial statements from Uber to show that you are already generating an income and you're working and you're getting some money out of that as well. If you can get a letter from Uber as well to say that you are working with them as an Uber driver and you have that registration, then that might also work. 5112 general. Should I renew my passport now or process PR first? Well, both are unrelated, to be very honest. You will have to renew your passport anyways. So it's not about waiting for the CEC. It will come when it has to come. You will get your invitation when you have to get your invitation. So don't hold back. Renew your passport whenever you have to renew it. In any case, if IRCC is going to approve your application, and if your passport is expiring within the next 6 to 8 months, they will ask you to renew it anyways. So at this point of time, you are under there is no hammer on your head to there is no sword sort of hanging to say, okay, you have to do it now. You don't have to. It's August 2025, so you have plenty of time. If you want to wait, absolutely your call. Okay. Can I add my wife in PR application under non-EE after PNP? However, during PNP application of myself, I have stated non-accompanying as her spouse open work permit was not yet approved. Currently, she is on spouse open work permit in Canada. Yes, you can add your spouse. There is no problem. In a non-express entry application, at any point of time, you can add your spouse. Can I apply for wife's spouse open work permit extension before I get my postgraduate work permit and raise a web form after getting postgraduate work permit. I have a knock to job. Technically, yes, you can do that. And in most cases, IRCC will consider it unless her application gets processed before your postgraduate work permit gets processed. In that case, the spouse open work permit will be refused. But technicality wise, yes, you can do it. It's not a problem. Yeah, you can do it. It's not an issue here. Postgraduate work permit is expiring. Can I work on LMIA exemption work permit application as an implied status? Yes, you can. There is no problem. As long as you make a new application for work permit before your current work permit expires, even if it is an LMIA exempt work permit, then yes, you can work on the implied status. Sorry, what's that? सारी स्कीम बोल बोलकर नहीं बतानी होती, लोगों को समझाओ, क्योंकि सारी बातें ये बोल बोलकर बता देते हैं. प्लीज स्टे पॉजिटिव. Okay. Honestly, I don't understand what you're trying to say. I mean, I understand the Hindi here, but I don't understand what you're trying to say. But okay, I'm positive. Thank you. Can I work if I applied for both a study permit and work permit as extensions when on work permit after expiry of present work permit? And what about after study permit approval when waiting for work permit? Oh my God. Completely confused with what you're trying to ask me. But I will just stick to your work permit because you're asking me, can I work? So if you have a valid work permit and you are applying for another work permit before its expiry, then you can continue working. It's as simple as that. And if you have applied for a study permit also, that doesn't matter. That's nothing to do with your work permit status. If you have a valid work permit, you apply for the extension, you can continue working on the implied status. Whether you've also applied for a study permit, that doesn't matter. So as long as you have a work permit extension applied for and you are on an implied status as a worker, you can continue working. My wife has 1 year of experience in India, but she doesn't have payslip or salary certificate. Is it okay in healthcare CEC? In healthcare CEC, so I'm confused. If you're claiming her points for foreign work experience, then you need to prove that she was paid. Then if she doesn't have a payslip, that's fine. Then provide a salary certificate or provide bank statements that show salary credit. Thank you, Syed Ali. I submitted my job offer and relieving letters for my study permit with my ITA. Are any more documents required? Yes. You need your employment reference letter, you need your pay stubs, you need your bank statements that show salary credit, you need your income tax returns, all or most of it. So you need to provide your reference letter. That is how your job is established, or your knock is validated, your period of work is established, your working hours are established, and you have to provide proof that you are being paid. So pay stubs, bank statements, income tax returns, whatever you can provide, then you must provide that as well. Waiting for P2 since a week. Can I resend P1 email to expedite the process? Yes, you can. 504, 1 year postgraduate work permit, last working day on 31st Jan. What date I can continue to claim points under CEC? Is it till 31st Jan? Considering a 3-year eligibility. Within your 3 years period, in your 1 year has to fit in. Okay, so 2 years until after you have completed your work experience, you are still within that 3-year period. So keep in mind that at any point of time, if you look back 3 years back from the date, for example, today is 27th of October 2024. So you go back 3 years, 27th of October 2021. Within this 3 years, your 1 year of complete work experience must fit. That is how you are CEC. Got ITA, can I give my biometrics for PR in India? Yes, you can. There is no problem with that. You can do your medicals, you can do your biometrics, you can do it in India, you can do it in any country, no problem. Can I extend my work permit because my passport was expiring and they were not able to give full work permit if I renew my passport considering current situation of immigration? If you got a shorter duration of work permit because of your passport expiry, then yes, please renew your passport and apply for the extension. You will get it. Can I apply for spouse open work permit extension while postgraduate work permit application is in process. Technically, yes, you can do that. It is just whether IRCC will link those two applications. And of course, for you to be able to provide your employment letter and 3 pay stubs for the spouse open work permit. That's what you need to do. And of course, also provide a copy of your postgraduate work permit through the web form once you get it. Does fake extension impact PR application? Will it be considered as misrepresentation? No, it does not impact, and no, it is not misrepresentation. Misrepresentation is when you are lying, when you are providing fraudulent documents, when you're trying to mislead the visa officer by withholding some information or providing misleading information. That is misrepresentation. And doing a fake extension is none of these. Current ICT work permit is valid till April. Applied extension. Can I go to India for 15 days? Yes, you can go to India. There is no problem. Yeah, absolutely no issues. Passport had an outdated addresses while on study permit. Will it affect my work permit? What steps should I take to resolve this? Nothing. No action to be taken. It doesn't make any difference what the address was on your passport. My TRV got expired. I'm in India. I have USA visitor visa. Can I travel from India to Canada via USA? No, sir. You will need a TRV to Canada. Just because your TRV is expired, you cannot travel to US and then come to Canada through the land border. No, you are not a permanent resident. You can't do that. You have to apply for TRV to enter Canada. Are there any chances of CRS score of 539 to drop this year? Yes, most certainly, for sure. 539 will drop, but we don't know how low it's going to go. Open work permit applying H1B from Canada. If it's not getting picked in the lottery, will it be bad record, impact on PR application, disclose while applying PR? No, there is no impact of you not getting picked in H1B. It has absolutely no relevance, no connection, nothing to do with your Canadian PR. Disclose it or don't disclose it, it doesn't make any difference, because there is no question when it says, have you not got into a lottery with H1B? Yeah, so there is nothing to disclose there at all. Okay, working as a tech guy and travel to India for vacation for 2 months, work from India, will these 2 months count towards my experience? No, it doesn't count towards your Canadian experience. For it to count Canadian experience, it has to be in Canada. Just because you're working for a Canadian employer outside Canada, that doesn't count. Think of it. For example, if you're working for Google US, but you are in India and you always work for Google US remotely, does that count as the American experience? No, it doesn't. Same thing, if you're working for Shopify in Canada, but you are an outsourced worker who's working from India, does that count as Canadian work experience? No, it doesn't. Even if it's a Canadian employer paying in Canadian dollars in a Canadian account. If you're not in Canada on a Canadian work permit, it doesn't count. For my experience in India, I gave cash slips for salary proof. IRCC has asked for tax returns. My cash slips total is 2.6. My ITR shows 3.6. How can I justify 1 lakh gap in the justification? Signing bonus, it's my dad hospital. I worked. Well, you can provide any explanation from your employer, saying that it was a cash bonus, saying it was commission, whatever that might be. But yes, provide a letter from your employer, provide a cash salary certificate, provide your IT returns, and provide an explanation as to what the difference is. You can always say it was a not signing bonus. You can say bonus, commission, holiday bonus, performance bonus, whatever that might be. Are there no chances of a transport draw? I don't really know about the chances, Tejveer. I wish I knew it. I would certainly assume that there should be at least one, before they completely change the categories. Can I change knock code on EE profile after getting the ITA, because my employer has given me a different knock code of my current job? Is there any implications? Well, with Ontario, there can be an implication, because Ontario has given you a notification of interest based on a specific knock code. If you're changing the knock code, even the knock code that you are changing to, that also should have been included in the draw. That is the first thing. Plus, you will have to write an explanation stating that you have received your documentation from your employer and you find the different knock code is a better suiting match, and that's why you're changing. And then the final discretion, obviously in this case or such cases, is always with the employer, with the OINP or the officer in OINP. But technically, if you're asking, can you do it? Yes, you can do it. But provide an explanation, provide your employment letter that matches with the NOC code. Can I put my spouse as non-accompanying in express entry to get higher CR score, even if he's in Canada right now? Yes, you can do it. Lots of people have done it. Already 2 people have asked the same question. One of them has even received his Portal 1 email, so you know that this can be done. There is no issues here. Any reason for COPR delays after September P2? Backlog is one. 2, I think they're approaching close to their targets for this year. 3, they are trying to figure out how to do this process faster. That's pretty much as I know. But I think the backlogs are quite a lot that they have right now. Applied for employer job offer since 10 months. It is on hold because I am an Ontario government employee. What should I do? I told government application are on hold. Well, to be very honest, there is nothing you can do. If they are on hold, they are on hold. At the end of the day, it's only when they will process and proceed with your application will you get a result for it. So as much as I know, you might be getting very anxious because you want to see a result. There is nothing that can be done in such situations. Can you please share details of position cook in Ontario? I don't have any details. You can check Ontario portal. They do not have cook as listed in any priority occupation as of yet. But again, instead of me telling you anything about it, you can also check the same thing on the Ontario website. At least I haven't seen any cook position being in priority in Ontario. But you can do an employer job offer or an international student stream if your employer is willing to support you. Will I get 50 points in EE for C20 permit? You will after you have completed 1 year of work experience with the same employer on that work permit. I'm in Canada on work permit, applied for spouse visa twice, got rejected, applied for tourist visa, got rejected. What should I do? It has been 2 years since we got married. Please help. Well, first thing to figure out is why is it getting refused again and again and again? You should apply for the GCMS notes, not for the visit visas. Visit visas is quite obvious because you are in Canada and you've been applying for so many work permits. So the ties to country are the reasons why your visit visa is getting rejected. But your open work permit for your spouse, if you have applied before, check that. And if you haven't applied for spouse open work permit, then you should apply for that. And if your spouse open work permit has been refused, then apply for the GCMS note so you can understand exactly what is going wrong and then address those concerns, and then you can reapply. I got Saskatchewan nominated currently in Nova Scotia. Can I apply PR now? I'm in closed work permit. And when do I have to move to Saskatchewan? Yes, you can apply for your PR at the earliest. Please make sure you add a very strong explanation that you are currently living in currently living in Nova Scotia, but want to move to Saskatchewan, and that it's your closed work permit that is binding you to Nova Scotia, but your intention is to move to Saskatchewan. And if you can move sooner, move earlier. If not, then I guess you can only move once you get your PR. I applied for study permit and work permit while on work permit, and the SP is approved. Can I still keep working full-time while waiting for decision on work permit extension when the original work permit is expired? I'm very confused. I know you asked me this question before also, but I'm very confused. But if your status has already been changed to a study permit, then you cannot work full-time, even if you have a work permit extension in progress, because you've already got your status changed. Always your first if you make 2 applications, always the first application then decides what your status is. So now if your status is of a study student and your study permit is approved, then you cannot work for full-time. If you're studying, then you can work 20 hours per week. I meant if the foreign work experience is genuine, but for a small team which is not registered as an entity. I'm not sure what we are referring to. We had already done so many questions. I don't remember which question this was. But if you are saying small team not registered as an entity, well, at the end of the day, IRCC needs to be able to validate that this company is operational or this company is genuine, this is a business. If they are not able to do that, then they will not approve your work experience. So whatever, I mean, whether it is registered or not registered, it should be operational. There are a lot of companies where you don't need to, there is no requirement to register a self-owned proprietorship kind of a business. So, but as long as this company exists, its online presence is there, and there are business addresses, etc., then you might be able to get away with this. But there has to be some entity of the business existence in order for you to claim your work experience for this particular job. Can I apply for fake extension while my wife is not accompanying in PR file? Will this have effect? Yes, you can apply for fake extension. That is not a problem. Accompanying on the file, not accompanying on the file does not make any difference at all. Is flagpoling still a viable option to expedite postgraduate work permit? No, you cannot flagpole for postgraduate work permit. That has been stopped already. You will be just wasting your time if you go for flagpoling. Currently looking for a job. Can I apply immediately after getting one for my wife's work permit, or I must wait to have 3 pay stubs? Oh, you can look for a job. There is no problems in looking for a job. It's about the work permit that is a problem. So to get a work permit, if you're applying for a spouse open work permit, your spouse in Canada should already be working and should have a job, and you need to have pay stubs, 3 pay stubs. Only then you can apply for a spouse open work permit. Got ITA from Trade Draw for the second time this year, but I have never worked or lived in Ontario. I lived in BC. Am I eligible? No, you are not eligible. In order for you to be eligible under the Ontario's Trade Draw, your work experience should be in Ontario within the last 2 years. If it's not, then you're not eligible. I applied for LMIA as a fast food worker. My current score is 456. 50 points will be 506. I have 51 points in Ontario foreign worker stream. Any chance for PR? Well, it looks like that the scores might finally come down based on the new in Canada focus numbers. But fingers are crossed. Other than that, as a fast food worker, unfortunately, there are not too many options in the PNPs. If you have an employer who wishes to support you for the PNP stream, as you have, as and when the draws happen under the job offer stream, then you might have that option as well. Tech draw will be discontinued due to STEM removal. I don't know. I don't think so, because Ontario always had a tech draw even before the STEM category was in existence. And until and unless they say specifically that we will not be conducting a draw, there is no way to speculate and say, yes, it will happen, or no, it won't happen. Should I wait or go non-accompanying? Well, to go non-accompanying is your choice. I cannot recommend or say that you should or you should not. That is something which you will need to make a call on. But can you do it? Yes, you can do it. When can we expect human capital tech draw? I don't know. There is no way for me to speculate when the draws will happen. Can it happen? Yes. Will it happen? I don't know. There is no way for me to give any kind of estimate or date, because there is no such kind of schedule. I added foreign experience when I applied study permit, and I'm not sure if I added in applying work permit. Can I add this foreign experience now in my express entry? Well, if you at least added it in your study permit, then yes, you can show it in your express entry. Wow, this was a long one today. Guys, thank you so much for joining in. My throat is already sore. I wish I could go on and on for questions. I know there are so many other questions that I haven't answered. I wish I could answer all of them. But what I can do for you is I will come back and I will try and answer as many questions. If you put them down in the comments section, later in the day, I will come back and try and answer as many questions as possible. So please do comment below on the video so I have those questions with me. Thank you so much for joining in, and I shall see you very soon.